Welcome back to my explainer tonight, and it is all about this that is a growing topic of conversation: degrees for elected officials. To have degrees or no degrees, that is the question tonight, and it is all about this section 22 of the Elections Act that talks about the requirement of a degree from a university recognized in Kenya for somebody wanting to run for the position of Member of Parliament. In this case, that is Member of National Assembly and Member of the Senate, as well as those who want to run for County Assembly office. Now, there is a little bit of history here. It's over 10 years in the making, and this conversation started before the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and it was first mooted by the Committee of Experts, right? Those who were gathering the views on amending the Constitution. And at the time, the only requirement for elected officials was to gauge their literacy in English, or proficiency as well, in English or Kiswahili. So this amendment was put into the draft constitution. But in Naivasha, there was a renegotiation, and it was here that it was decided and agreed upon that the only people who would be required to have degrees were those running for the position of president, deputy president, governor, and deputy governor, and that the requirement for MCAs and for members of parliament would be something left up to parliament to decide. And that is how we ended up with Article 99 of the Constitution of Kenya that gives parliament the mandate to decide the minimum requirements for elected officials, right? And so the Constitution is passed, and so we come to the year 2011, and so it was that Parliament passed the law requiring MPs and MCAs to have degrees from universities before they can even run. But what happened? The law was passed by the members of Parliament, but it was not assented into law. This is because members of parliament went and lobbied then President Kibaki at the time, and he decided not to assent to the law because the argument then was not many of them had degrees at the time, and they would therefore subsequently lose their seats in a possible re-election. And so therefore, because it was not assented to, those who ran in the year 2013 during that general election were not required to have degrees. But this was an issue that came up yet again in the year 2016. Now, that was in the 11th Parliament. That is the one prior to the one we have today. So the conversations come up, and by this time, around 2017, there are certain questions about the competencies of MPs, and particularly, I believe, at the MCA level, saying that the work they were doing of oversight and legislature and keeping the county governments and the national governments accountable was a technical issue, and that governors, deputy governors, and the CECs have degrees, but those who are providing oversight over them do not. So they start to have this debate back and forth. Should they then remove that requirement from the governors so that you reduce or remove the imbalance? And also the question on whether a degree confers leadership or whether it simply assists with their competencies. And so in the year 2017, that is this year, an amendment is then made to section 22 of the election laws. This one now requiring those wanting to run for MP and MCA to have degrees. The bill was passed, and it was assigned, or rather assented to or signed by the president on the 9th of January 2017. Now, there's a bit of a hitch here because between January and August, too short a time for those who would like to get degrees in 8 months to the next general election. So therefore, what happens at that time? Again, the decision is made that it will not apply in 2017, all right? And so that is how you have the issue of it being kicked down the road once again. And so that takes us to this clause that was then added to suspend the application of that then said that this will come into force and shall apply to those who are seeking to run for office in the subsequent election after the 2017 general elections. That means it is this coming election in August of the year 2022. But here again, there are some concerns after the IEBC chair simply reminded those who might be seeking to run for office that this is indeed a requirement for that. But there's one problem. We've had a COVID-19 pandemic and the academic calendar has been severely disrupted. And so there are some, particularly within the County Assemblies Forum, who are saying there has not been enough time for them to be able to finish to do this. And of course, others have also said that it is discriminatory and it goes against the basic will of the people to decide. Now, I know there is a question about whether this affects some of those who are running and who are currently sitting in the House. That's 416 MPs, that's both the Senate and the National Assembly, and 1,450 MCAs in the country. And those are the ones who are elected, let alone even those who are nominated. Difficult to tell how many of them it'll affect should they choose re-election, because remember, this was not a requirement, so there is no data, but some people say about 50% of those at MCA level, considering the numbers of those with degrees in general in the country is rather low. So where does that leave us at this point in time? Well, again, there is talk of amending that clause in the elections law. Now, the reason it is before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee is that, remember, this is a function of Parliament. Now, let me tell you what is happening in Parliament. Again, there have been two petitioners who have made their recommendations to the House, that is the National Assembly. And if you recall, a little earlier this week, the Speaker of the National Assembly committing those proposals to amend it, saying it is discriminatory, it is unjust. Those have been taken to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee that will then present its report to the floor of the House. Now, there is also some new developments to that. Senator Murkomen has put in a proposal to amend that section 22, remove it altogether and replace it with the fact that those who want to run for these two offices only need to be literate in English or Kiswahili or Kenya Sign Language for those who have hearing impairments. And then there's yet another development. You can see there's quite a bit of conversation around this, including what the Deputy President had to say earlier on, but also Senator Ledama Olekina has put in his own proposal, and he is saying that it should be scrapped. That part saying they should have degrees should be scrapped and instead replaced with them having a certificate, a diploma, or any other post-secondary school certification. And he also has another proposal that it should not apply to those MCAs who have already served before, including councillors, remember that, before 2010 Constitution, and who have no degrees at the moment. So this is a big talking point. Should our elected officials have degrees or not? Does it confer leadership qualities? And is there lack of debate? Just to give you some context and perspective, what does it look like in other countries? Well, in Uganda, Article 80 of their constitution requires those running for elective office to have an advanced level standard. That is A level or its equivalent, not a degree. Taking a look at other countries, like in Ghana, for instance, they're having the exact same debate we are having here, and there is calls for MPs to have degrees. They're saying the quality of debate in the House has gone down, and they're also adding something that all those who then get elected should have some post-election education or training to enable them better participate in their functions of oversight in the House. In the UK, for instance, there is no such requirement requiring those running for elective office to have an advanced degree from a university. So that is what it's looking like, not just in Kenya, but across various jurisdictions on the continent and abroad as well. Which way will it go? Well, we will see, considering 13 months to the election, but indeed about 10 months for them to get this, because remember, nominations must be concluded about 180 days, I believe, before the next general election. That's my explainer tonight.